Alright guys, I'm going to show you real quick how I'm going to work through doing the Prezi presentation based on kind of my ninth grade history class that I've been building examples for, and also I went ahead and I selected the topic teaching with movies, which was one of the topics you could have selected on Sign Up Genius. So I went ahead and did that one. I also blocked that out so you can't use this example going forward, but hopefully you'll be able to translate kind of what I'm doing into what you guys need to be doing, and it'll kind of give you an idea of how to go about this. So with that being said, I'm in the class right now. I'm on Module 5, and I came down to the instructions right here, capturing digital presentations. And I went ahead and pulled up the Google Doc, and right now, all right, we've already got the sign up link. I'm doing teaching with movies. And so I came down to step 2, and this is what it's looking for. In step 2, we got to remember no longer than 5 minutes as we do the research. So what I did is I went ahead and I copied these bullets and I popped them over here into PowerPoint, okay? And then I went ahead and I broke them out into a PowerPoint kind of like slide deck just so I know. It just kind of helps me kind of organize the stuff better than just seeing those 3 bullets randomly sitting out there. So when I came over here, this is what it ended up looking like. So I know to put definition explanation. On best practices, I went ahead and I went out and looked up a couple of best practices as to why using movies in the classroom is good. So these are the best practices I found from that website, so I'll use that in my sources. And then here I found some pros and cons from this website. And then I'm not going to go ahead and do everything on here. So like you guys need to do 5 examples, you need to do extra pros and cons, things like that. I'm not going to do all those. I just want to give you an idea of the process you're going to go through. But that's where I've got my examples of use, and I knew there had to be 5, so I'd go ahead and do a couple more of them. And then I've got my resources and images that I will end up using on the overall Prezi PowerPoint presentation thing. All right, so that again, the only reason I do that on the PowerPoint is it kind of helps me break down what each section of the requirements are on this project. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically build my Prezi off of this little slide deck I've got going right here. So with that said, I'm logged into Prezi here. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to create a new Prezi. And I'm going to look for a template that kind of looks history like. Again, the subject that I taught or I'm teaching in this is ninth grade world history, and we're looking at World War II specifically. So I'm going to kind of scroll down and see if they've got anything that kind of has a history looking thing to it. There's not any that are really jumping out to me, and I don't really want to build my own. So let's see, give it a little bit more. You know what? Some of these things have to do with like Japan and Pearl Harbor and stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to select this one and see if it'll let me use this one. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and say use this template. Now, some of you guys might get this little prompt that says, do you want to pay for it or whatever. As long as you present it out to public so everybody can see it, you don't have to pay for it. Just select that option, you'll be good to go. And I went ahead and I did another video about how to kind of maneuver through a lot of this stuff, like messing around with the order of zooms and things, so I'm not going to go into details there. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and change this one out. And again, mine is teaching with movies. All right, and I'll go ahead and I'll use their little template on this thing. So I'll do, let's see, Dr. Gale. And I'm going to just do right here, ED305, so that I know what I'm doing it in. And I don't have a company logo. I'm just going to delete that out. All right, so first and foremost, I'm not going to look at the subtopics or anything on that. I don't have a like starting point, so it's going to start with this overview. So I'm going to go ahead and do this one as what is teaching with movies. All right, I'm going to drag that text up into the blue box a little bit so that it really looks like it's there. And here I'm going to go ahead and do best practices. Let's make that box a little bit bigger so we can actually see it. Go ahead, go back in here and make that P capital P. All right, we're going to do pros and cons. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to center that text just so it looks a little bit nicer in there. And I'm going to go ahead and drag him. He doesn't look like he's right in the middle. I'll hit those crosshairs, so that's nice. And then over here, we're going to do classroom examples. Oops, let's spell that right. Room examples. And then I need one extra bullet over here, so I'm going to go up to topic and I'm going to add one. Go ahead and get me a blue dilly in there. I'll make it a little bit smaller so it kind of finishes this trend of getting smaller as we go. And here I'm going to turn this one into resources. And if I look over here, I've got title, explanation, best practices, pros, cons, examples, resources. I'll combine those onto one. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 slides, and then the big overview. So the big overview, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So I'm good there. Okay, so that's looking a little bit more like that. So I'm going to go ahead and skip the description, which would be on this bubble here. I'm going to go ahead and go to best practices, and I'm just going to kind of copy this stuff over. So I'm going to click on best practices. I'm going to go ahead and click over here so it zooms in. And I'm going to change this title so it actually makes sense when you see this. So best practices in using movies to teach. All right, let's go ahead and manipulate my box here. I'm gonna get up there, teach. All right, I want to drag them over a little bit so we kind of fit in there. That's nice. All right, so I'll say something in here descriptive, so like teaching using movies and multimedia can be very beneficial if done appropriately. Let's see if I get a red squiggle because I don't know if that's spelled right. All right, and so over here I've got 4 best practices. So I'm going to change trend 1 to say something like preparatory work. All right, let me right click, get a good spelling on that. Preparatory. All right, make that a little bigger so it's all on the same line. Kind of click and drag him so we look pretty. Bam. All right, so 2 over here off this website I had found. I've got compare and contrast. So I'm going to do compare and contrast and contrast. All right, let's drag him up. All right, red squiggles. So come on. Contrast. All right, center him out. Whoop. I'm looking over here. I don't see any numbers on here, so I think this thing is going to zoom straight through here. I'm hoping it's not going to zoom too much in. They look like they got little charts, so I may have to do some manipulation down here, but we'll see what happens with it. We'll fix it from there. All right, and so right here I've got number 3 on my bubbles is tied to real life. And when I do my screen capture on this, which is in module 6, I will end up kind of going in and actually talking about these. So right now, yes, they are basically bullet lists that are kind of giving me a mental trigger to talk about them when I get to that point. All right, and so now I'm going to do one more bubble here, and I'm going to name this one. Let's see, over here we've got prep, reflect. Reflection of media. All right, talking about that again whenever I get into doing the actual screen recording. All right, so I've got my 4 bubbles. It's looking like my slide. What I will probably do here too, just to keep it going cool, is I'll do a shape. I'm going to do a rectangle. I'm going to move it down here kind of towards the bottom corner. Oops, I don't want to do that drag. I want to make it still fairly decent size. And I'm going to go ahead and let's take a quick look at where that article was. I'll be honest, I don't remember off the top of my head. I'll have to go and look at that article, but down here I'd say something like sort. Let me go ahead and insert a little text box so I can actually write. All right, I'm going to come down here, put this on the box, and I'll say source, and I don't know, we'll just say like Jones 2019 or something like that. Because again, we're doing APA citations on this. I'm not going to be too overly strict on how that goes, but what I'll do is on my resources page on the back, I will source out Jones and what the website is in APA format for right now. This will suffice for what I need on this page. I'll go ahead and follow what's been going on and make this color black. And it's kind of like really out of my face right there, so let's go ahead and shrink that text a little bit. We don't need that important. One other thing I would do is I'm going to click the box, and kind of like in PowerPoint, I'm going to select that box in the back plus this forward text, and I am going to right click them, and you should be able to group them together. Let me see if I can click and drag. Nope, it's going to move me. Come on. Usually if you hold control or shift and click, there we go. Now both of them might be selected. Let's see if it'll let me do it. Right click, group. And that way, if I ever want to move that like to the top, I can click and drag, and it'll just drag all those together. So that's what grouping will do. It's kind of like the same thing as the grouping function in PowerPoint. All right, so let's go in and really quick see what this ends up looking like. So I'm going to go ahead and hit present up here in the top corner. Takes me to full screen. I'm going to move my blue bar over to the beginning so I can kind of make sure everything is looking good so far. All right, so to zoom in there, I've got to fix that one. I haven't done that one yet. It comes back out. Then it goes into best practices, which that's looking like what I just built. That's good. If I click it, it does take me into a graph. I don't want that to happen. So let's see if we can fix that. All right, so I'm hitting escape. I'm going to go back out. And let's see what we can do here. So I'm going to click on this. I'm going to take this away. See if I just hit delete, if that takes all that out. And what I might do on here is, if I can't get this out, I'll do something like preparatory work. See, I just cannot spell that word. There we go. And then I'll put like a description of it here. So be sure to do ... You know, something like that. Now, ideally, I'm going to try and get rid of that zoom. I'm not really sure how to do that off the top of my head right this second, but I'll probably play around with that to make sure that that happens. And if not, like I said, I'll go in here and I'll make it work with some of the text. If a worst case scenario came, instead of building it as a subtopic, I could probably just go in here and do insert shape. I don't know. But for right now, we're going to kind of keep going, and we'll see if that ends up working, or that's not a clickable thing. Let's see if I can take off. And you know, here's actually how I can probably cheat that easiest, is go ahead and I will delete that phrase completely right there. Boop. And I will just make this super big, so it looks like that's what we kind of zoomed in to talk about. Alright, let's move that so the words fit. Alright, and you'll see if I go back to present how that cheats. Alright, let's go back one. So I'm going to zoom in. Boom. And then I can talk about preparatory work, and then it comes back to the next one. So I could do the same thing on those. So there's ways to kind of cheat this if it ain't working out exactly like you want. Alright, so we're going to pretend that I went through and I finished out the best practices. Then I would come down to pros and cons. And I'd probably do the same thing in here. If I go in here to zoom, when I get in here, I would probably delete out this one. I would delete out this one. And then I would maybe name this pros. And then I would probably name this cons. And then I would go into the subtopic here, and then I would probably do, again, pros. And I would do my bullet list of however many things I needed on pros. So like over here, I'll just grab these real quick. And let's go ahead and paste them in there and see what happens. Let's see, I don't need that. Take that, highlight that, bullet list. And then I can fancy that out and format that out so it looks a little bit better. Down here again, what I think I would do, let's see if it'll let me cheat this. I'm going to go back to best practices. And let's see if it lets me copy you. And hopefully this doesn't break everything and outsmart me. Let's see if it lets me paste you. Alright, so it says it wants me to use the keyboard command, so Control V. And we'll say this one came from, I don't know, Bates 2017, so that we can just have something different. And then cons, I would come into cons and I would do the same thing. I would change this to cons and put my bullet list in, but you guys saw how to do that, so I'm not going to go into doing that with the copy and paste. Alright, so I'm going to say here, pros and cons. And I would change this to, again, something like using multimedia has numerous advantages and disadvantages. All right, and then we go into that. So let's go ahead and hit present. Let's take a quick look, see if that worked out like it needed to. I'm going to hover my blue. Let's go back some. All right, so we did preparatory work. We're going to fix that one, fix that one. We're going to fix that one. All right, now we're back out. And pros and cons. All right, so that worked. That came back up nice. I'm going to hit next on it again. Boom, my pros are there. I'm going to hit next. My cons are there. And then it should take me all the way back out. So good. My pros and cons are looking like I won. All right, I'm going to do the same thing with classroom examples. I'm not going to go through how to do all of it, but same deal here. I would go through here and I would probably make, here are some examples, blah, 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 and then I would put 5 bubbles right here, and I would say in those 5 bubbles, here's 5 different ways that I would use this in the classroom. So again, I'm not going to go through because it's kind of the same format we've been doing on the last 2 bubbles, but when you see the finalized example I give you, you'll see that those things are in there. And then after that, we would come back out and I would go to resources. Now that resources don't look right, so I'm going to go ahead and drag that out a little bit, recenter him. Now you're looking better. All right, so let me go to resources in here. And same deal here. I would probably do 2 subtopics. I'm going to add one, and we'll call this one I think that's highlighted. So I'll say this one is resources in general. This one is going to be resources and works cited, just so that doesn't get confusing on everything else. And then I'm going to create one more little subtopic just because this is the way that I normally do it. You do it all on one if you want, whatever. And this one I'm going to call image sources. And that's because I intend to go back and things like where I'm talking about the movies. So maybe my examples. Over here you'll see I've got an example of maybe I'm going to use Pearl Harbor in there, the movie. Maybe I'll do Saving Private Ryan, whatever. I may take like a picture of the screenshot of Saving Private Ryan so you know what I'm talking about, and put that image in my classroom examples. If I do that, then I want to have under my resources over here somewhere that I can dump the movie poster or whatever. I'll put that under the image sources. So I do intend to go back to get the above and beyond points by adding in things like the images throughout there and making it look fancier and things like that. So, but with that being said, when we are all said and done, I'm going to go back out to the beginning. I'm going to hit present one more time. I would come back here. Again, mine's not going to be completely done. I got to go in and make some more edits, but I'd kind of click through, run through it one more time. All right, looking nice. Just make sure everything is clicking in, zooming in where I want it. It's doing what I want. So that one's fine, that one's fine. I'd come back out, pros and cons. All right, overview, I got some pros, I've got some cons. All my sources are cited correctly, everything like that. I've got my examples, I'd go through. Remember, I'd add my examples in here, so this isn't right, but it will be. Then I'd come back out, and hopefully lastly, resources, 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 and boom, I'm done. All right. So that's kind of how the process is going to look. That's the way I'm building mine as I go through and make the examples for you. One thing to remember is that this has to be under 5 minutes. It has to be between 4 minutes and 30 seconds and 5 minutes. Do not go over 5 minutes. So when I'm putting those bullets down and I'm going through this on the screen capture, man, I'm going to be click, 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 click. It's not going to be something where I'm talking 20 minutes on one slide like I normally do, because I got to make sure I'm within that time frame. But anyways, that's the general way that this thing goes in my mind. I will go ahead and finish out this example, and I will put the Prezi in the class so that you guys have the example. But again, make sure that you go based off of what the rubric is looking for and not strictly by what I did in my example. Yours does not have to look similar to mine. When I go in to start grading these bad boys, I'm going to be looking for some creativity, for some splash, make it more towards your top. I mean, don't just copy what I'm doing. I just wanted to give you an example of one of the ways this thing can look, okay? So with that being said, if you have any questions on the project, any questions in general, just let us know and we will get back with you. And otherwise, I look forward to seeing what these look like. I think they're going to look really cool. Thanks, guys.